Morning, people. Good to see you. Got Justa Ruckus over here. Good to see you. Karan and Ananda Devi. Oh, and we have Yogeshwar Prabhu coming in. Wonderful to have you here, Prabhu. And I don't see anyone else from the Bhakti Center here running things, so I may be on my own. I don't know if more people are going to be coming in. I'm not sure if they normally have someone work through the different Bhagavatam verses for our invocation prayers. But seeing as nobody's here now and it's 11:01, I think I'll just chant some invocation prayers on my own, and you can all chant on your own. And then we can begin. Oh, here we go. Karuna Gurangaji. I was wondering if someone is going to show slides for the invocation, or I could just chant it on my own and get started. You can let me know either way. And if I don't hear from you, then I'll just start. Okay, then I'll just start now. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitang Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapara Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Chatam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so we have 10 people here total. And if you all want to show me yourselves, it's greatly appreciated. I'm only seeing 2 people right now, but if you don't mind, you may have your reasons not to open up your cameras. That's fine too. But if you want to show it, and I'm noticing that we have a relatively small audience. Hey, Yadunath, good to see you. I'm noticing that we have a relatively small audience today, so which may make it kind of open it up for a more interactive kind of thing going on. I would be interested to know how many of you that are here today have been tuning in regularly to Bhagavat-Sravana and are up to date with where we're at in the Leela, in the story that's being told, or if some of you are coming here kind of irregularly or maybe even for the first time and are unfamiliar with it, in which case I would do more summary. But how many of you are could use more summary? If you could let me know. Just a ruckus. Ananda Devi is camera's off, but she says because you haven't showered yet. Okay, fair enough. Sarah is asking for a bit of summary of how we got here. So I'll go ahead and do that. And I think we can also, I'm really open for questions. I'll try to leave the um, leave time. I'll leave my chat open, and if you have a questions, and I notice sometimes on Zoom people can hit some button and a little hand comes up in the window. I don't know how to do that, but if you want to do that too, and I'd be happy to take
At the
questions as we
bottom,
go.
at the
Hey,
bottom of participants, if you click participants,
yeah,
then you have an option to raise your hand.
I'm
You
clicking.
probably don't have that, Kaustubha, if you're the host.
Gotcha. Okay. So you hit participants and then you go down to the bottom and you get your hand raiser thing. So feel free to do that too. And let's get into it. We are in a a section of the Bhagavatam. I mean, they're all great sections, but in some ways, this is one of the most fascinating and interesting sections. It's it's there's a one 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 of the ways that I find it to be very special or beautiful is it does something that comes through in the Bhagavatam, um, in other places too, and but really strong right here. And for those that tune into Wisdom of the Sages, we had a couple weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had Rukmini Devi on there, and we interviewed her. She made a statement that she said in the Bhagavatam, um, the the humble people are rising up, and the kind of the proud or the arrogant are being humbled and they're being brought down. And we see that throughout. That's one thing that's happening here. But another thing that's happening kind of along with that is there's a message that's coming across. And that message has to do with taking our spirituality beyond the superficial level. Because from a superficial level, Vitrasura in this pastime, he appears to be a straight out demon. Externally, he is on the wrong side, right? He's not fighting on the side of the Devas. Now, the Devas are the religious people. They have their faith in Lord Vishnu. They're trying to follow his rules properly as far as possible. They're not necessarily entirely pure devotees. They still have an interest in the enjoyments of this world, particularly in the higher planets. There's so much enjoyment to be found there. But they want to cooperate and do it religiously. There's a lot of talk, about religious, a religiosity compared to spirituality. And the Bhagavatam is a place that really begins to, if you go to the original four Vedas, it's kind of like, here's the religious teachings. But by the time Vyasadeva is presenting Bhagavatam, he's really pushing to that level that this is about spirituality in its deepest way. And you have to go beyond mere religious rules and regulations. It's not about just siding with one team or a profession. What do they call it? Like it's a profession of faith. You know, um, speaking once, adopting a particular faith and saying I accept this person as God and I accept this religion. It really has to do. We're really meant to be brought to a point where we have a much deeper realization of spiritual principles that are alive in our life. And as we will see that Vitrasura, externally, he appears to be fighting on the wrong side. And then a question of morality comes up. Like, although he's the demon and he's just born out of this fire and he's this horribly terrifying character and he's fighting against Lord Indra, who is like the chief of the demigods, the person that's really representing apparently the side of goodness and the side of religion. By the time Vitrasura starts to speak, you begin to wonder who's actually right or wrong here. Who's on the right side and who's on the wrong side? Because he's pointing out that Indra appears to be pretty immoral himself in his activities. And by the time Vitrasura begins to offer all his prayers, you realize he is a very deep devotee. And Indra begins to wonder, what am I doing here on this battlefield fighting him? It's a really fascinating story. So I'm just going to very briefly summarize some of the things that have happened up to this point. And that is that And you know where it begins? It begins with a really important idea, a really important thought. And that is that all the trouble starts when Indra, the king of the heavens, right? When Indra gets too, he's a good person. I mean, to achieve the position of Indra requires piety like we just cannot imagine, right? Someone that's living a very moral life for many, many, many lifetimes. Maybe still that piety may still be mixed with the desire for material enjoyment. And in the role of Indra, you're given that unlimited, I mean, really hard to calculate the the pleasures that are available to him, the opulences that are available to him. But the piety that one has to live with to achieve that role is hard for us to even imagine. So very special person, absolutely no question. But still, he becomes prone to material enjoyment. And because he's become kind of bewildered by it, his kind of his spiritual, let's say he loses his kind of clarity of thought. It's almost like you get intoxicated with that enjoyment and you forget what's what. And that can happen to any of us if we allow ourselves, if we allow our minds to become too caught up in enjoyment, then we can tend to make some serious mistakes. And so that's what happens with Indra. He's enjoying that the opulence of the heavens so much, that when his guru walks in the door, kind of lost in that state of, I'm the king, I'm the man, I have all this enjoyment. He gets a little intoxicated from that. And when his guru walks in the door, he doesn't show him the right respect, right? And so we're all prone to that too. If we don't live a little austere, if we don't curb the tendency for material enjoyment, then it's very likely that we can tend to not show the due respect that we should be showing to people. And so the trouble begins when Indra is kind of lost in that state of material enjoyment. His guru walks in the door, he doesn't get up and honor him properly. And because of that, Brihaspati, his guru, he turns his back on the devas and says, okay, this is the state you're in, then I'm just not going to be helping you anymore. And when that happens, the power of the demigods just decreases drastically. It puts Indra in a very difficult situation. And that situation, you see, to make up for it, he finds a priest named Vishvarupa. Vishvarupa is like a young brahmachari, very qualified. Vishvarupa instructs the devas in how to perform the Narayana Kavacha, how through mantra they could be protected. And so this is great. He's found a new priest. He's respecting him properly. He's receiving the protection of the that comes from these powerful mantras. But because the depth of his spirituality has not penetrated deeply enough, because he's still concerned with material enjoyments and avoiding material suffering. When we think life, that the purpose of life is to enjoy, right? I want to enjoy the things of this world. I want to avoid the sufferings of this world. We're not in the right state of mind. Really, the true bhakti yogis just sees this world as the opportunity to serve and to deepen their mentality of service. That my happiness won't be found by anything external. Whether things are going well externally or not, I'm really okay with that, because internally I can always be going deeper. I can interpret whatever is happening externally as a way, ultimately as God's will. And I can use that as an impetus to deepen my own spiritual commitment and realization. Now, Indra, he's unfortunately not exactly there. So something comes up, whereas things could have been good. He noticed that his priest Vishvarupa, although he was doing sacrifice for the devas and protecting them, he also had some affection for the asuras, for the demons. And he was, I believe it was, he was saving a little of the offerings and offering it to the to the asuras as well. Now Indra goes to his second mistake. His first mistake was being too absorbed in materialism that he lost touch with how to respect his guru. He slipped on that, right? He got a little lackadaisical. Now his second mistake is he begins to act out of fear. Feeling justified by his fear, he commits a horrible activity. He kills his priest of Vishwarupa, beheads him. He had 3 heads, he cut every one of them off. Not even just one, all 3. And that act was so brutal, was so immoral, was so wrong, that the father of Vishwarupa does a sacrifice to gain revenge. Now Indra's bringing a whole new level of problems. He could have said, my priest, he's operating to help us devas, and we need the help, because we want to keep things right. This is our service to Lord Vishnu. He's helping our service to Lord Vishnu, but it appears like he's helping our enemies as well. We really need to have a talk about this. I need to sit down with him and discuss this and try to understand why he's doing what he's doing. But instead, he just acted out of fear. He killed Vishwarupa. Vishwarupa's father is so angry that this apparently pious religious man has done such a horrible thing. He killed my son, who was such a pure priest, that he performs a sacrifice to gain revenge over Indra. And from out of that sacrificial fire comes this incredible figure, Vitrasura. Now, Vitrasura is terrifying, right? And the whole description is there of how he's massive, and his eyes and his beard and his hair, and it's like all red, and he's like incredibly powerful. And no matter what the demigods did, they couldn't defeat him. It was like he was like playing with them. The whole armies he could defeat. And now what's happened, where we pick up, is that Indra's army, being terrified by Vishwarupa, has just scattered, right? And Indra is left there alone on the battlefield with his elephant. Now he's been prepared with a special thunderbolt just to counter, just to be able to handle Vitrasura. But the whole thing's terrible. He throws his club at Vitrasura. Vitrasura just catches it, no problem. Takes it, swings back, hits Indra's elephant, which we can. Elephants are big and powerful, but imagine what Lord Indra's elephant is like. The battles that he's gone through, and the elephant just gets knocked way back, falls over with Indra on the elephant, and the elephant's bleeding, and Indra's able to heal that elephant, but he's standing there like, well, what can I do? He's so powerful. And now, in the mood of a real warrior, Vitrasura begins to speak, and he's saying, "Stand up and fight me. You're supposed to be a hero. Now stand up and face me and kill me. Try to kill me," because he actually is a devotee. And he wants to take his next birth as a devotee. He's happy to die there on the battlefield. So now we're going to read some of what was going on the battlefield in the talks, and some just incredibly beautiful, important messages will come through in these verses. But let me just check in with our group now. We got a little bit of a bigger group now. We have got 16 people. Does anyone have any question or anything that they would like to add at this point? I'm happy to hear from you all. We got Pat here. We got Telsarani. Mangalarti's coming. Anuradha. So many. Thank you for coming. Okay, so I'm gonna read. I'm gonna begin with this is Canto 6, Chapter 11. Text number 14. I'm supposed to read 14 through the end of the chapter. I'm going to focus especially on the last 4 verses of the chapter. So let's see. So text 14 Sri Vritrasura said, he who has killed a Brahmana, meaning Indra, he who has killed his spiritual master, indeed he who has killed my brother. Because in a sense, Vishvarupa was Vitrasura's brother because they were both born of Twasta, who was the father of Vitrasura. He who has killed my brother is now by my good fortune standing before me face to face as my enemy. O most abominable one, when I pierce your stone-like heart with my trident, I shall be freed from my debt to my brother. Only for the sake of living in the heavenly planets, you killed my elder brother. It's like, Yadurnath, it's like, this is a James Cagney thing, right? You dirty rat, you killed my brother. And a self-realized, sinless, qualified Brahmana who had been appointed as your chief priest. He was your spiritual master, but although you entrusted him with the performance of your sacrifice, you later mercilessly severed his heads from his body the way one butchers an animal. Indra, you are bereft of, Indra's probably feeling like he had the moral high ground going into this. But because he acted out of fear, he actually lost it. And now even this demon is kind of preaching down to him, saying, how could you be so immoral? How could, out of that fear, Indra made such a mistake. Indra, you are bereft of all shame, mercy, glory, and good fortune. Deprived of these good qualities by the reactions of your fruitive activities, you are to be condemned even by the man-eaters, the Rakshasas. Now I shall pierce your body with my trident, and after you die with great pain, even fire will not touch you. Only the vultures will eat your body. You are naturally cruel. If the other demigods, unaware of my prowess, follow you by attacking me with raised weapons, I shall sever their heads with this sharp trident. With those heads I shall perform a sacrifice to Bhairava and the other leaders of the ghosts along with their hordes. But if in this battle you cut off my head with your thunderbolt and kill my soldiers, O Indra, O great hero, I shall take great pleasure in offering my body to the other living entities, such as the jackals and vultures. I shall thus be relieved of my obligations to the reactions of my karma, and my fortune will be received, and my fortune will be to receive the dust from the lotus feet of great devotees like Narada Muni. So he's ready to let go. He's a devotee in his previous life, and by some chance he had to take birth in the body of a demon, in the family, in the role of a demon. But he actually wants to go back to his devotee life. O king of the demigods, since I, your enemy, am standing before you, why don't you hurl your thunderbolt at me? Although your attack upon me with your club was certainly useless, like the request of money from a miser, the thunderbolt you carry will not be useless. You need have no doubts about this. So he's saying, you threw your club at me, I can handle your club. But the thunderbolt that you have, this has been especially empowered to take me down. So why aren't you using it? Throw it. Don't just stand there. O Indra, king of heaven, the thunderbolt you carry to kill me has been empowered by the prowess of Lord Vishnu and the strength of Dadichi's austerities. So what happened was, Indra, he knew that it would be very difficult to win this battle. And he was instructed to go to the sage Dadichi. And Dadichi was like this yogi who he could empower his own bones to become like almost indestructible. But he would have to give up his own life to provide the weapon for Lord Indra to use against the demons. But he voluntarily did that. And so now he's got this very special weapon that's empowered by Lord Vishnu and by the strength of Dadichi's austerities. Since you have come here to kill me in accordance with Lord Vishnu's order, there's no doubt that I shall be killed by the release of your thunderbolt. Lord Vishnu has sided with you. Therefore, your victory, opulence, and all good qualities are assured. Okay, now imagine if Indra would have meditated on that before he killed Vishvarupa, right? That as long as I'm on the side of Lord Vishnu, as long as I'm trying to serve, then whatever happens for me is auspicious because I know I'm on the side of Lord Vishnu. But in that fear, he acted based on material calculation rather than spiritual calculation. We see that, for instance, that plays out in in the Mahabharata, where both Duryodhana and Arjuna go to Krishna to ask him to take part on their side in the battle of Kurukshetra. And Arjuna is thinking on the spiritual level, and Duryodhana is thinking on the material level. On the material level, Duryodhana walked away with Krishna's armies. Krishna said, I won't fight, but one of you can have my armies, and one of you can have me, although I won't fight. So from the material perspective, it seems like, oh, well, let me take the armies. But from the spiritual perspective, Arjuna just wanted to be on the side of Krishna, or Krishna to be on his side. And if I know that as long as that's there, that everything will be auspicious, then that's what I want, even if materially it doesn't make sense. And for Indra, he looked at the material situation and says, you know, this priest of mine seems to be also helping the demigods. I've got to get rid of him. You know, I got to kill him. And so he saw it entirely on the materialistic platform. He didn't approach it from the spiritual platform. Now, you can imagine in Indra's position, what he's been through, the fear, the humiliation. He's made big mistakes. It's been recognized that he's made very serious mistakes. He's doubting his own, he's doubting that he's blessed, you know. And now it takes Vritrasura to stand up and say, no, you are on the side of Lord Vishnu. What's your problem? Stand up. Victory and opulence and all good qualities, they're assured for you. So come on, fight me. He says, by the force of your thunderbolt, I shall be freed of all material bondage, and I shall give up this body and the world of material desires. Lord Sankarsana, by fixing my mind upon the lotus feet of Lord Sankarsana, of Lord Vishnu, I shall attain the destination of such great sages as Narada Muni, just as Lord Sankarsana has said. Persons who fully surrender at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always think of his lotus feet are accepted and recognized by the Lord as his own personal assistants or servants. Imagine what Indra's thinking when he's hearing this. He's like, hold it now, you know. This is this demon, and he's actually preaching to me like pure bhakti. He says, the Lord never bestows upon such servants the brilliant opulences of the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems of this material world. When one possesses material opulence in any of these three divisions of the universe, his possessions naturally increase his enmity, anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. Indra must be thinking, oh my God, he's talking about me. He's preaching about me, right? I'm up there in the heavens. I have all this opulence, but I got a little lost in it. And I developed enmity. I developed tons of anxiety and mental agitation. My pride has cost me so much, and my belligerence. You know, I've lost my strong spirit. I might have all the religious trappings around me, you know, Indra, king of heaven, the head of the demigods. But I've actually, if I'm experiencing all this, it means that my true devotion is on a superficial level. It hasn't gone very, very deep, you know. Whereas now we look at Vritrasura. Here's a person like, I'm not attached to anything material. As a matter of fact, I'm ready to die. The only desire, you know, Indra's out there, I need to restore order so that I can be enjoying in my heavenly kingdom again without these demons ruining everything. That's part of his motivation in all of this, large part of his motivation. We need to get the religious society set again and everything to be good. Vritrasura doesn't care about any of that. Vritrasura is just like, I just have a burning desire to be reconnected with the Lord, and that's all I care about. So kill me. I don't care. You know, Indra's afraid of death. You know, Vritrasura is not at all afraid of death. It's very interesting. You know, it's part of, you know, this, again, what this pastime is doing is it's helping us get beyond the superficial religious understanding and into that deeper spiritual understanding. And this passage is going to show us, it'll illustrate how religious judgmentalism, how superficial it is, how it's a very superficial approach. And that when we're focused on externals, it's not adequate. for assessing the true heart of a person, right? What their religion is, how often they go to church, how many mantras they know, how they dress, how, all these external things. They play a role in the religious and can play a role in the religious or spiritual practice, but they're not the essential items. And so often the beginner spiritualist is particularly concerned with the and when I say beginner, I don't necessarily mean like in terms of amount of time, but I mean in terms of one's progress. But often it involves an elevating of the importance of externals and an inability to judge things understand things on a deeper level. On the surface, Indra appears to be morally superior, and he's on the right side. And Vritrasur appears to be like a heathen barbarian. But as this pastime plays out, we see that actually the materialistic one is Indra. And the one that has deep, pure devotion, the one who has rid himself of the anxieties of this material world and the desires of this material world, is actually Vritrasura. Later in the Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, we're going to hear it'll lay out for us understanding how bhakti yogis or devotees, how they're on 3 different levels. And it begins with this verse about the Kanishta Adhikari, or the neophyte. And the verse says, Archiyam eva hariye, pujam ye shradadeyate, natad bhakteshu chanyeshu, sabhakta prakrita smritaha. That Archiyam eva hariye, pujam ye shradadeyate, with shraddha, they worship the deity in the temple, right? Now, the deity in the temple is a very, let's say, obvious, tangible manifestation of God. You walk into Krishna temple, and there's Krishna on the altar. He's holding a flute. He's got the peacock feather. He's standing in the threefold bending form. I've read the scriptures. I've read Bhagavad Gita. I've read Bhagavatam. I know that is God. I bow down. I do service. I recognize God right here in the sanctum sanctorium of this temple, in the space that's within. You have a temple compound, and then within that you have the temple building itself, and within that you have the sanctum sanctorium, the very altar, the very chamber where the deity is situated. And I know I can go right to that place and seated there on an opulent throne, surrounded by ornate archway and so on. Everything externally is telling me this is where the devotion is meant to be sent, right? The entire architecture is kind of like directing my attention and my devotion to that figure. And so for Kanishta Adhikari, you can say, yes, here's God, and I'm devoted to you. And I will make visible displays of my devotion to you, because I recognize divinity here. But that's called so say that one who recognizes the divinity in the temple of the Archa Vigraha, the carved form on the altar in the temple, but Natad Bhakteshu Chanyeshu, they don't recognize that divinity in the devotees, in the bhaktas, or Natad Bhakteshu Chanyeshu, or in the other people, in the general mass of people. Sa bhakta prakrita smritaha. Such a person is called a prakrita bhakti, or a materialistic devotee, right? A materialistic devotee, that their devotion is not penetrated very deep. Their ability to recognize divinity is very stunted, right? It's just very limited. Only in the most obvious and concrete form can I recognize divinity, right? Now, in this pastime, where's the divinity, the true divinity radiating from, right? If we look at this, there's 2 people on the battlefield here. There's Indra, he's a religious man. He's fighting on the right side. you know, but he's full of doubt. He's full of fear. He's full of anxiety. These aren't the qualities of someone who's deeply connected to their own spiritual nature. These aren't the qualities of a deep bhakti yogi. Whereas Vritrasura, pure divinity, is just radiating from his heart, from his words. It's like it's the real thing. There's, divinity is just is pouring out of him, right? So this pastime is trying to help us understand this. It's by the time we get to the Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva is trying to really help us understand what the way that we need to see in a deeper way, what is really important and what's not so important. Because if we just read the Vedas or just do Upanishad, we may not get it. We may not get it. The Bhagavatam this pastime is there in the Bhagavatam to help us get it. That now we're going to go to the ripened fruit of the Vedic tree, the work of the author in his maturity. And here he's going to be sharing with us the final messages that we really need to embrace to understand what spirituality and devotion and bhakti is really all about. And so again and again, we're going to hear pastimes that are going to challenge that external religious understanding and encourage us to go deeper into understanding really what's what. So here we are on the battlefield. This apparently horrible demon is radiating pure, deep, spiritual wisdom and devotion. And we have to say, look who it's coming from. And if the Bhagavatam is illustrating this for me here in this context of this story, how do I apply that in my life? Right? Am I judgmental based on externals? Do I try to always look deeper? You see, if you approach this pastime and you don't know the background, let's talk about the background, right? Let's talk about the background. How did Vritrasura end up in this position in the first place? What happened, right? Really, he was a king. He was a saintly king, a Rajarsi. He was like a pure devotee kind of king. And he was a close friend of Lord Shiva. And one time he's kind of flying around in his, they had these certain kind of airplanes at the time, but they're kind of airplanes that can hover and move at will, not like these jets that we have, but these very unique flying apparatuses. And he's looking down and he's seeing Lord Shiva, and he's speaking to a group of his followers. And in this context, it's very unusual to see that Parvati, his wife, is sitting on his lap. And normally if you go to a temple and someone's giving, imagine if I was in a temple in Bhakti Center and I was giving a class in the Vyasa and Gita Priya was sitting on my lap. Everybody would be like, what are you doing? What's this? But knowing how great a character Lord Shiva is and that he's really beyond all these externals too, his name of the Vritrasura at that time, his name was Maharaj Chitraketu. Chitraketu, the friend of Lord Shiva, just says in a lighthearted way, and more is to just as a friendly kind of joke. He says, "What is going on here, Lord Shiva?" And although Lord Shiva takes it in stride, and he understands that there's nothing there that was meant to be criticizing him, but Parvati didn't like it and cursed him. Right? Cursed him. And cursed him to become a demon. And there's an amazing verse that's given at that time. What is that verse? You see, because he could have become very upset or tried to counter it, but he just accepted it as if totally undisturbed by this curse to become a demon. And it's not a nice, you're going to have to take birth as a demon. And what is the verse? Narayana parasarve nakutas chanyu bibyati svarga apavarga narkeshu apitulyartha darshana. That Narayana parasarve nakutas chanyu bibyati. That the Narayana Parayana, those who have taken shelter of Lord Narayana parasarve nakutas chanyu bibyati, they have no fear. They don't fear anything, right? Narayana parasarve nakutas chanyu bibyati svarga apavarga narkeshu. whether in the heavenly planets, Svarga, Apavarga, whether liberated, or Narkeshu, whether in the hell, heaven, hell, liberation, Apitul Yarta Darshana, they see it all as of equal value, you could say, right? It doesn't matter if I'm in heaven. It doesn't matter if I'm in hell. It doesn't matter if I'm liberated. I have no fear in any of these cases because I'm devoted to Lord Narayan. I'm always feeling the presence of Lord Narayan. I'm always feeling my connection to Lord Narayan. So whatever my circumstances are, I have no fear. Now we see here Indra has fear, right? Oh no, my priest is giving a little prasadam away to the wrong people. I kill him, this could go wrong. This could go bad. If he had no fear, he would have been fine. Chitraketu gets cursed to become a demon, to live this hellish existence, and he just accepts it. And Lord Shiva says to Parvati, my dear Devi, look at this, try to understand the depth of this person's connection. So Chitraketu is cursed and he becomes Vritrasura in his next life. Now he's in the body of a demon, and he has to fight against Lord Indra, right? And he's actually quite eager to die. He's happy to die so that he can return back to his life externally as a devotee, but internally. So now that's his background, right? Knowing that when we see this big fiery demon fighting on the wrong side, we can understand how he has this inner depth of devotion, right? That's there all along. Now, we should contemplate that. We should meditate on that. We should think about that. And then we should allow that contemplation to shape our mind. Allow that contemplation to influence our future, so that when we are meeting with other people, what to speak of especially other devotees, that we develop a certain kind of, I could say the word tolerance, but let's say a type of reserved approach, so that when we see something that may not measure up to our ideas of what is right or wrong, we understand that there's a backstory here that I may not be aware of. So let me move through this world in a way where I'm very careful about what I find worthy of my condemnation, right? Once we step into a religious society or religious practice or religious community, it opens up the door for us to begin to condemn, right? To condemn another. And actually, it's exactly that really turns people off, and that's why people say I'm spiritual and not religious. It's that whole condemnation thing that's going on, right? Whereas if we're now Bhagavatam's telling us right here, hey, who's worthy of condemnation on this? Indra is condemning the demons and condemning Vritrasura, but Vritrasura is actually far beyond condemnation. He's actually an incredibly and it's going to become clear to Indra. He's going to be like, what am I doing fighting this person? What's coming out of his mouth is like, I realize he's more deeply spiritual than me, far more. I look at me. I thought I had the more high ground, but he's actually a pure devotee, and my mind is absorbed in all kind of materialistic things. So Bhagavatam really shows us that, and it helps us clarify how we should move through this world, the kind of caution that we should have, the kind of not only that, but the eagerness to try to find that divinity wherever it lies, to try to recognize and respect that divinity wherever it lies, within every living being, and even how we can find someone is actually very deeply spiritual where we didn't expect to find it, right? Where we didn't expect to find it. This pastime is also going to show us that devotion to God is just as worshipable as God himself. That when one has devotion to God, that we honor that as divinity. That devotion to God is as divine as God, right? And so therefore, even in the form of a demon, where that devotion to God lies, Bhagavatam glorifies it. Bhagavatam brings it to our attention and glorifies it in such a special way. Okay, so let us go back to our reading. Unless there's any questions or thoughts anyone would like to share, I'd be happy to take them right now. You can hit your little raise your hand button if you want. If not, I'll continue. Okay. So I'll read the verse I was just reading again. Text 22. Persons who fully surrender at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always think of his lotus feet are accepted and recognized by the Lord as his own personal assistants or servants. The Lord never bestows such servants with the brilliant opulences of the upper, lower, middle planetary systems of this material world. When one possesses material opulence in any of these three divisions of the universe, his possessions naturally increases enmity, anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. Thus, one goes through much endeavor to increase and maintain his possessions, and he suffers great unhappiness when he loses them. That's you, Indra. Our Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, forbids his devotees to endeavor uselessly for religion, economic development, and sense gratification. O Indra, one can thus infer how kind the Lord is. Such mercy is obtainable only by unalloyed devotees, not by persons who aspire for material gains. He's getting a real good lesson. Now, text 24. Let's focus in here. He says, he says, "Oh my Lord." And now he turns and he begins to pray to God, right? First he was kind of instructing Indra, and now he's just on that battlefield, opening up his heart to God. "Oh my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet? O Lord of my life, may I again become their servant so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes, my words always glorify those attributes, and my body always engage in the loving service of your Lordship." That's a beautiful prayer, right? He's saying it right out there on the battlefield. Now, there are two things going on in this prayer that, well, first of all, he uses this construct that you'll find many times throughout Bhagavatam, you find it in Gita, so many places, where he speaks of body, words, and mind, right? That this is how we kind of regulate our service and our devotion. That I need to dedicate my body. I need to engage my body in the service of the Lord. I need to engage my words, and I also need to engage, ultimately, my thoughts. It's easiest to engage the body. It's more challenging to engage the words, and still more challenging to engage the mind. But when the mind becomes fully engaged, and then we've achieved the goal of yoga. Right? So let's see what Srila Prabhupada. Oh, and then there's one other thing happening here in this verse that I thought was really significant, and I looked it up, did a little research. If we go to the Sanskrit, let me open that up. So he says, "Aham hare tava padaikamula das anudaso bhavitasmi bhuyaha." He says, das anudasa, right? The servant of the servant, right? This is the only place in Srimad Bhagavatam where you hear this term. And it's also there. It's also found in one time in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya prays, "I'm not a Vaishya, I'm not a Brahmin, I'm not a Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, I'm not a Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. I'm simply Gopi Bharta Kamala Yor, Dasa Dasa Anudasa. I'm the servant of the Lord of the Gopis, Sri Krishna." Now, other than that, I don't know where that phrase is mentioned. And of course, the Chaitanya Charitamrita is a more recent text. When he quoted that, he was actually dancing before the Lord in front of the Rath Yatra cart. And I don't know if it's the Chaitanya Charitamrita or if it's Srila Prabhupada that says, I think it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the verses itself, it says, after he quoted these verses of scripture. So where that verse came from originally is hard to say. It's included in Rupa Goswami's Padyavali, but that was something written after Lord Chaitanya chanted it in front of the Rath Yatra cart. So it's really here in this verse of Bhagavatam that appears that this phrase comes from, dasa anudasa, right? And becomes such an important part of understanding our practice and our culture that we don't aspire even to become the servant of Krishna. We aspire to become the servant of Krishna. That this is our mood, that this is the humility with which we approach, and that this is really seen as the highest goal. That it pleases Krishna even more when I become the servant of his servant. So let me aspire for that. So here he uses that phrase, dasa anudasa. Nice, huh? Interesting to find that there. Okay, so let's see what Srila Prabhupada says in the commentary. He says, this verse gives a sum and substance of devotional life. One must first become a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord, dasa anudasa. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised, and he also showed by his own example, that a living entity should always desire to be a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. Gopi Bhartur Kamala Yor, dasa, dasa, anudasa. This means that one must accept a spiritual master who comes in the disciplic succession and is a servant of the Lord. It's interesting, in the Wisdom of the Sages podcast, we always take questions on Saturday. And one person had written in a question that this was a DT who sometimes attends our Bhagavat-Sravanas. And she said, what does it mean? I hear this phrase that one must give their life to their spiritual master, right? And when I read this morning, I thought, really, this is what it means right here, that my master has given his life or her life. And just as they gave their life to their guru, I give mine to my guru. That my body, my mind, my words become devoted in their service as they serve their guru, as we all serve Krishna together. So Prabhupada says, this means that one must accept a spiritual master who comes in the disciplic succession and is a servant of the Lord. Under their direction, one must then engage one's three properties. Interesting. My three properties. I have a certain ownership, you could say, over these, but I'm meant to engage them in a particular way. One must engage their three properties, namely body, mind, and words. The body should be engaged in physical activity under the order of the spiritual master. The mind should think of Krishna incessantly, and one's words should be engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord. If one is thus engaged in the loving service of the Lord, one's life is successful. Okay. So that brought up, we found two things, interesting things in that verse. The phrase dasa anudasa, as well as the engaging of three properties, body, words, and mind. Now, the next verse is going to bring up another interesting point to take in. Text 25. O my Lord, source of all opportunities, I do not desire to enjoy in Dhruva-loka, the heavenly planets, or the planet where Lord Brahma resides. Nor do I want to be the supreme ruler of all the earthly planets or the lower planetary systems. So he's saying there's nothing material that I'm interested in, and that is called karma, right? I'm not interested in doing pious things so that I can be the next Lord Indra and rule over the heavenly planets. I've lost interest in all material enjoyment. He also says, I do not desire to be master of the powers of mystic yoga, right? So I'm not interested in karma. I'm not interested in yoga, that kind of yoga, the mystic powers that come from yoga. Nor do I want liberation. I'm also not interested in the results of jnana. I'm not interested in the results of karma, material opulence. I'm not interested in the results of yoga, special mystic powers. I'm also not interested in the results of jnana, of liberation, peace, freedom from material suffering. I'm not interested in any of those if I have to give up your lotus feet. That's all that I really want. Right? Okay. And really, Bhagavatam is all about identifying bhakti as superior to the results that come from karma, that come from yoga, that come from jnana. Right? It's one pastime again and again and again showing this. And now we're hearing it from Chitraketu. We hear it originally from Sutta Goswami in the second chapter of the Bhagavatam, and many, 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 many times it's going to come out again and again and again. How bhakti is the only, the only process that grants Atma supersidity, complete satisfaction of the soul. It won't come through anything. Indra's got all the material opulence in the world, right? But he's still full of anxiety. He hasn't found that satisfaction of the soul. And here it's being pointed out that it also doesn't come through mystic yoga, and it also doesn't come through jnana or liberation. Okay. Now we're on text 26. This is a very beautiful verse where Chitraketu, this massive, powerful, fiery demon who's just like, who you just cannot stand before on the battlefield, begins to express his own hunger to be connected with the Lord. And as well as that, in a very poetic and delicate way, his dependence on the Lord. Right? That although he's possessing a body of immense power, and usually a guy like that would be full of that male ego, that he's able to express in a very gentle way his dependence on Krishna. And so this is what he prays. He says, "O lotus-eyed Lord, as baby birds that have not yet developed their wings always look for their mother to return and feed them." Right? What could be more delicate and completely dependent, than a little baby bird that doesn't even, you've seen you guys ever watch those nature films, and when that little bird, I go to Central Park, and this is the time where the eggs hatch. There's always some geese, and they set up their nest on the side of the reservoir, and the mothers sit there and they watch those eggs. And then just like last week, they started to hatch, and the little ones come out, and they don't really even have feathers. They're just kind of like furry, they got the little hairy little things, and their eyes aren't even fully developed, and their wings, so they can't fly. They can't go anywhere. They're like, they say like a sitting duck. They're like, they can't move, and they have no power, no strength, and all kind of ferocious animals can come and kill them. And they can't eat on their own either. They're totally dependent on the mother going away and then coming back and feeding them. So he's saying, that's like me. That's what I'm like. I'm just like this little bird that's completely dependent and hungry and waiting for you to come to me and protect me and feed me, he says. So he says, "Oh, lotus-eyed Lord, as baby," can you imagine what it was like to witness this on the battlefield too? It's like, this is the guy that just hit Lord Indra's elephant and knocked him back 14 feet and sent him rolling back on his back with Indra one flying. And he's saying, "Oh, lotus-eyed Lord, as baby birds that have not yet developed their wings always look for their mother to return and feed them." Okay, that's one example. Now another example. As small calves tied with ropes await anxiously for the time of milking, when they will be allowed to drink the milk of their mothers. Okay, and then another feminine kind of analogy is given. Or as a morose wife whose husband is away from home always longs for him to return and satisfy her in all respects. And break it up over there. No hugging during the Bhagavatam class. I'll read it again. Or as a morose wife whose husband is away from home always longs for him to return and satisfy her in all respects. I always yearn for the opportunity to render direct service to you. That's a powerful prayer. Complete humility, but that eagerness. I'm not satisfied with anything else. I'm not going to be satisfied with anything else. Until I'm reconnected with you and I have the opportunity to serve you, nothing here will satisfy me. That is the message that we have to come to, where we can pray that with absolute, utter sincerity. That will be the completion of our practice, right? When we say that prayer, that we're saying it with 100% conviction and integrity and sincerity. I'm through, right? I'm sitting here and I'm until I'm reconnected with you, I'm morose. I'm not finding enjoyment here and this or in that or the other things. I need you back in my life. I need to be really fully connected. I need to serve you again. So very beautiful prayer. There's a short commentary. A pure devotee always yearns to associate personally with the Lord and render service unto him. The examples given in this regard are most appropriate. A small baby bird is practically never satisfied except when the mother bird comes to feed it. A small calf is not satisfied unless allowed to suck the milk from the mother's udder. And a chaste, devoted wife whose husband is away from home is never satisfied until she has the association of her beloved husband. Okay. And I think this is the final verse of the chapter. Yes, text 27. Oh, my Lord, my Master, I am wandering throughout this material world as a result of my own fruitive activities. Therefore, I simply seek friendship in the association of your pious and enlightened devotees. My attachment to my body, wife, children, and home is continuing by the spell of your external energy, but I wish to be attached to them no longer. Let my mind, my consciousness, and everything I have be attached only to you. Right? Now, we should understand that when it says my body, my wife, my children, my home, these are the things that a pious person finds material enjoyment in, right? In other words, it's not a verse that's meant to make us callous towards our family, but it's a verse that's meant to help us understand that even the things that give the greatest happiness and pleasure in this world do not give Atma Suprasiddhiti, do not give complete satisfaction to this soul. And that's all that I want now. And so this is Vitrasura's prayer on the battlefield. He will have much more to say in the following chapter. But again, these verses, they show us many things. They show us just how important and essential it is and how careful we must be to try to come off of that Kanista platform, to try to step deeper into spiritual life where we see divinity not only in the deity in the temple, not even just in the devotees. That's a big step if we can really honor the divinity that we see in the devotees, but that we need to begin to see divinity everywhere. Divinity in nature, divinity in all people, right? That when we come to the platform of wisdom, where we're no longer shaken or disturbed or confused by externals, then we'll have a steady mind. And with that steady mind, it will allow us to begin to recognize the divinity everywhere. And when our mind is steady, it doesn't matter if it's hot or cold or people are being nice or not nice, our mind remains undisturbed. And when we're able to recognize divinity wherever we go, in everything, then that mind, that purified mind, will be able to become deeply absorbed in the holy name of the Lord, deeply absorbed in the message of the Bhagavat. It'll speak to us in ways that are unavailable to us, that we're out of touch with until we get there. And that holy name, when the mind becomes deeply absorbed in that Shuddhanam, pure Nam, without any other distraction, then it will be entirely powerful and transformational. So these chapters, these verses are helping us get beyond that superficial level and try to recognize divinity everywhere. So I will stop here. We have some time left. I'm happy to take questions. I'm happy to end early as you all like. But if anyone has a question or something they would like to share, please raise your hand, either physically or hit that little button thing. And I'd be happy to unmute you, or maybe you can unmute yourself. Anyone like to share anything? And if not, that's okay too. Yorana?
Hi, Krishna.
Hey. So good to
Thanks.
see you.
Very wonderful class.
Thank you.
In so many different ways. I just have a comment. I appreciated when you mentioned about Lord Indra. Just imagine the amazing amount of piety that he gained to get the post of Lord Indra, because he seems to be the one that for a lot of us, it's so easy to not dismiss, but you know what I mean? Like there's so many times he sort of goes off the mark,
Yes.
And that we don't recognize his greatness, and it also made me think of the first time I made my way through Bhagavatam. One of the things that I was struck by, and it was confusing to me, was how many of these great sages took offense so easy. Like they seem so easy to take offense and so easy to curse, like aren't they supposed to be on like some really high platform? But of course, and this ties into like Lord Indra sort of missing the mark sometimes for me, is I came to realize that it makes it all the more real for me. Mm-hmm. that these are not fictitious one-dimensional characters. They're actual people, actual human beings, people who are flawed and are striving for an ideal and who don't always hit that ideal. So it gave me actually more faith in the scripture to read of people who are not just perfect.
Yeah.
Because then you get into that thing of like, well, I am so not perfect. How can I ever get to that level? But these people who are much closer than I am, they also have struggles, and but they're working toward it, and they've gained such amazing spiritual insight, and I'm struggling too, and I hope to gain more insight as I go.
Thank you. That's a great point, and it's a fact that you see the stakes are so high. The higher up you go. So like if I lose this position, look what I lose. I lose this, the seat as the king of heaven, which unlimited opulence and material. So although it took incredible piety to get there, he can still be, it can still lose it and become so materially absorbed in the need to protect what I've got. That's a lot about what our anxiety in life is all about. We're trying to protect what we got. Even if we're not even striving to get more, we're just protecting what we've got. It can be such an anxiety. And so even there in the heavens, they've got so much. If they were to lose it, it would be such a loss for the material calculation. So Indra, yeah, he's, Bhagavatam is going to my understanding is that Bhagavatam shows us Lord Indra often because Lord Indra is the pinnacle of material advancement. If you want to be a materialist, he achieved the highest level of materialism, right? The very peak, the pinnacle of it. But we see that even he becomes confused, even he gets bewildered, even he falls into anxiety, even he commits offenses because of his anxiety. And that the message becomes very strong that there's not a level of materialism that I can get to where the anxiety will go away. That I need to turn within. I need to turn to spirituality to actually find true relief in life. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
So,
yes, I will.
Very well. So would you say that you're not really striving, so that Indra's trying to tell you, forget the material platform, like he's there to remind you not to strive materially?
that Bhagavatam is using him in that way, right? In the Gita, we'll find a little similar kind of thing where it'll say all the way up to the planet of Lord Brahma, down to the lowest planets, all are places of anxiety where birth and death take place, But Bhagavatam, where we got not 700 verses, but 18,000, it's going to illustrate through the character of Indra that even when you reach that pinnacle, you're still full of anxiety. There's still so much potential anxiety. And so we see that play out in different ways.
So the person, Lord Indra, the person, Lord Indra, is like desire to become Lord Indra, or did all these pious activities to get to be Lord Indra, or was he really shooting for the spiritual world, but this is as high as he got? And so then do we, in our pious activities, maybe never get there? We only get to a better life or a better body or whatever, and like.
Well, it's obviously a very elusive position, right? Because there's one of them in the universe, and there's so many living beings in the universe. And Indra is a post. It's not a person per se, but it's a post. He has the post of Indra, but he's got his own name, and he's his own individual person that's in that post, just like a president or something like that. So how exactly he got there, we don't know. Now we do find, is it the post of Lord Brahma that's spoken about in the Nectar of Devotion that says after 10,000 births of perfectly carrying out Varnashram Dharma, one can take that post, So we can understand that there's many lifetimes of great consistency in one's practicing Dharma. Now, the Vedas teach about how one can rise in the material realm, and it would seem that one receives the post of Indra after very deeply imbibing the teachings of the Vedas and aiming for that higher life. It would seem that way. Although what you're saying, it may also be true that someone was trying to aim higher, but they didn't quite reach it, but the depth of their piety elevated them to a certain role in the spiritual realm. So I can't answer so much, exactly how one gets that post. But at least I know for sure that it involves tremendous piety over the course of many lifetimes, most likely.
Haribol, it's Mangalarati Dasi.
Yes.
Let me see if I can. Haribol.
Haribol.
It's so good to see you all. Haribol, Indira, Yadranatha Kanda Bhakti. I feel like I'm at the Bhakti Center. I just wanted to bring up these beautiful points about the seeming or potential inconsistency of one's external behavior and internal consciousness and what attachment is. And I'm wondering what you think of this. Kaustubha Prabhu, you brought up the potentially different understandings. And I was thinking that there are so many different scenarios or dynamics that could be taking place. For example, one is someone could be materially engaged and not cognizant of Krishna at all. Two is an apichetsu durataro type of situation where someone's engaging in activities that have not yet risen to where they are spiritually situated. So someone may be advanced very spiritually, but then socio-emotionally maybe not as much, or it hasn't sort of caught up yet, apparently. Third could be like a Madhavendra Puri type of situation where...
This is a Madhavendra Puri,
where someone is in the throes of ecstasy and has attained the highest levels of prema and experiencing this vipralambha and separation from the Lord, yet someone like me without the vision to understand their experience might misperceive that experience as being materialistic when it's actually the highest levels of bhakti. Yeah. So I love that Yadunath Prabhu brought up this question, Indira brought up this question, and the way that you're addressing it is it just keeps reminding me of the great nuance and difference and depth and variety of experience in the way in which one's internal experience can be manifest. I'm just thinking again of that beautiful experience that's narrated about Kunti Devi and the severing of the ties of affection, where Srila Prabhupada describes in one purport, but that doesn't negate the wide variety and depth of emotional experience and behavior. That one's attachment can be cut while expressing affection for one's family members. So I don't know, it's just beautiful just to hear the different perspectives and questions and great variety that exists in the development of bhakti.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate hearing your thoughts.
I appreciate hearing yours.
Okay.
This is a highlight of my week, is to really to have this Sangha take place. I find that it's like challenging perceptions of what Sangha is from the physical and taking it to a whole different level. And I just really appreciate that dynamic, and I appreciate the presence of all of you. And I just so appreciate Kaustubha Prabhu, the classes and what you bring to the table.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate all that you're bringing, and everybody. So thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure being here with you. It's an honor for me to be able to take part in the Sangha. So I forget who's the speaker is next week. Maybe one of you know. But
I think isn't it Venkata Bhattaji, or am I wrong? Yeah, Venkata.
I don't know.
Yeah, Venkata. I was asking Indira. You wouldn't know who I was looking at in that moment.
Well, you look like you're looking right at me.
Well, exactly. Everyone's looking at me too. That's kind of how I function in the world. But I think it's Venkata Bhatta Prabhu.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you all so much. Hari Om Tat Sat. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Om.